Top of the morning, fight fans. This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz Jr. Get this. Joseph Parker wants Andy Ruiz Jr. fight next as the team reaches out. Fresh off his victory over journeyman Derek Chisora, former WBO heavyweight champion, Joseph Parker says his team is reaching out to Andy Ruiz Jr. to see if they can set up a rematch with the former IBF, WBA, and WBO champion. Ruiz, 34, now with 2 losses, 22 KOs, is unlikely to accept the offer to face Parker as he's got the potential of fighting former WBC champion Deontay Wilder. If not him, Ruiz could fight former 2-time world challenger Luis King Kong Ortiz to position himself to challenge the WBC champion Tyson Fury. Now, Parker, 30, should have accepted the offer to fight Filip Hrgovic. Nonetheless, him and his team is reaching out to Andy Ruiz Jr. And let me counterpunch. I don't see why that fight couldn't happen. I really don't. I think because of the strength of the Derek Chisora win, Joseph Parker has put himself in position to have enough confidence to go in there and do the same thing Anthony Joshua did and himself once again to Andy Ruiz Jr., okay? Because one thing we learned about Andy Ruiz, not a lot changed. He lost a lot of weight, and I think he lost because of that durability, okay? And because of that durability, I think he lost a lot of confidence as well. I don't know if that was before or after the Joshua loss, okay? Because I think at the end of the day, Andy Ruiz Jr. and Joseph Parker, that's a fight that should have already been, in the books. The only difference is Andy Ruiz Jr. got a deal of a lifetime taking on the former 2-time heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua, okay? And because of that, he's made some very, very small decisions. He hasn't taken big risk. He's ducked a couple fighters. He does have options, though. He can fight Deontay Wilder for his comeback fight, and I think if anything, Ruiz would be a guinea pig for Wilder to come back versus the other way around. And Luis King on Ortiz, I don't really see that fight happening because, again, Ortiz doesn't really have anything to really offer Ruiz, except maybe another L, which nobody wants, okay? He's Team Canelo. He's in the Reynoso gym, so those guys don't produce losers, okay? In fact, I don't think any of them have lost since, they formed that little circle bond, So I don't think Ruiz would take that route, but taking on Parker, what would it gain? I don't see that fight happening either. The only thing that I can say, yes, it's a good jump for Joseph Parker because Joseph Parker, Team Parker, has something that Andy Ruiz wants, or has, rather, okay? And I think at the end of the day, Joseph Parker, if he beats Ruiz Jr., that'll totally knock him off. And then Joseph Parker really fighting Joseph Parker really doesn't have anything for him to gain. I don't see that fight happening, okay? Morally, that fight should have happened. It should happen because the first time they fought, it was a split decision loss. It wasn't like Joseph Parker blew out Andy Ruiz. So don't get that twisted, and then Bob Arum and, really kind of forgot about him and all that stuff happened with him and Bob, and he got with Al Heyman. Now he's with Al Heyman. And I think with Al Heyman, it's safe to say he's going to stay over on the Al Heyman side of the street to fight guys over there. But really, who would he fight? Okay. But Joseph Parker wants that Andy Ruiz fight because he wants to be in the position that Andy Ruiz is in. Okay, so, that's big. Even though the win that, that he has over Andy Ruiz was not a champion when he fought him. Okay, this was later. Okay, so Andy Ruiz has achieved something, and I think Andy Ruiz has, achieved his Titanic moment. And what I mean by that, Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic, he'll never get bigger than that movie because that's the movie that put him over the top and he will never get that high again. It happens. Okay, so that's his claim to fame. He's a former unified heavyweight champion of the world. And Joseph Parker wanting that fight just proves that Andy Ruiz is still valuable, but only valuable for that time. But that's also the catch-22. Andy Ruiz knows that, hey, I can't take fights like Joseph Parker nor Luis Ortiz because those are the type of fights that are banana skins, okay, or banana peels. Right? He could slip right off and take one of those guys and get beat. Then he's totally off the radar. Okay, nobody would care what he does because he's a notch under where he is now. Okay, and where he is now is not really all that great, but it's better than Joseph Parker's position. So I think at the end of the day, that fight won't happen, but it does sound good for Team Parker to reach out for a rematch for Andy Ruiz Jr. You guys tell me what you think about this particular fight happening or talks. Please subscribe, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.